Some people feel uncomfortable talking about their internal rim width. I think it's important. Tyre width is one of the most important choices you can make on your gravel bike. It affects your comfort, your speed, and the puncture resistance, also known as fun. Now, rim width though, what even is that? Why is it important? How does that affect your ride? And what that's spoken about it is just marketing guff, and what is legit? Didn't mean to go down the drop-off there. I look like an absolute wally. Firstly, what is rim width? Stop sniggering, okay? Right, so this, we'll go back to basics, is your wheel rim, okay? All road and gravel bikes have the same diameter, okay? It's 622 millimeters. Some gravel bikes, admittedly, have slightly smaller wheels, 584 millimeters, but what varies from wheel to wheel is this bit here, okay? The measurement across this bit, and that is your rim width. There are two measurements to be aware of: external and internal, so outside and inside. External rim width affects the aerodynamics of the wheel, okay? So that's where you want your tyre to work in tandem with the actual wheel in order to smooth airflow as you're riding along. Now, what matters more to just about everyone else though is your internal rim width, and that's because that affects the way your bike feels to ride. So in this video, I'm going to talk through the theory as to why your bike feels different, and then I'm actually going to see whether I can feel the difference out in the real world doing a blind test. That's right, I'm going to ride my bike like some kind of Yoda. Oh, I can't see a blooming thing! Now, Shimano are very kindly helping us to make this video. For that reason, I have two pairs of their wheels. These are GRX aluminium wheels with a 21 millimeter internal rim width, and on them I've got 40 mil wide Pirelli tyres. These are GRX carbon wheels with a 25 millimeter wide internal rim width. Now, that's a 4 mil difference obviously between the two. These also have the same 40 mil wide Pirelli tyres on, just with a different coloured sidewall. How does one do a blind test? Well, since you ask, Stefan, our ace filmmaker, is currently deciding which pair of wheels to put in my bike. Right then, I need to get on the bike without looking, then ride the bike without looking down. Now, I have come prepared with some equipment. So this is like a cycling blinker, basically. I can't see anything below here. So yeah, simple, surprisingly effective, and I should imagine also pretty blooming cool. Ready? Yeah? Okay, I haven't got my helmet. Can you bring me my helmet as well? Oh, I haven't put my gloves on either. Oh, what a doofus. Oh, this is badly prepared. Got caught up on my massive ear. Genuinely, I can't see. This is really good. Our test lap is a bumpy drag of about 1 kilometre, followed by a smooth single track trail, which is not particularly representative of much gravel riding, but it does push your tyres hard. Right, I've got 30 PSI, by the way, in both sets of tyres. But I tell you what, I couldn't guess right now. Whilst I'm off doing my Yoda thing, let's talk for a minute about the theory of why rim width matters. So the job of the sidewalls of a rim are effectively to keep the tyre in place, but they also affect the shape of the tyre and also to a certain extent how much air volume is inside it. Now, on these two wheel sets here, remember, there is 4 millimeters difference, or 3.4 millimeters difference, if we're being really accurate, between the internal rim width. Now, when you measure the outside of the tyre, on the wider rim, it plumps up to 1.2 millimeters wider, but there is significantly more air volume inside it. Now, as we said at the start, wider tyres dramatically influence the way your bike feels to ride. So it's more comfortable, and you'll also find that it's faster on anything bumpier than tarmac. And that's because a wider tyre, or one with more air volume, is effectively a bigger spring. So you can run it at lower pressures, so it has more squish. It absorbs those bumps coming up from the road or the trail, so you move along it with less effort. You also have more control, you also have more comfort, and you also get fewer impact punctures. Now, wider tyres are only better up to a point, of course, otherwise we'd all be riding around on fat bikes. What that point is does depend on you, your riding style, and where you ride. The important thing to note, though, is that if your tyres get wider, be that 40mm, 45mm or beyond, but the rim width stays the same, then the shape of the tyre alters dramatically. We can see it here on these two wheels. Now, why does that matter?
The difference isn't hugely significant.
Alrighty, where's my wahoo? I turned the bleeps off. I don't know what I've done. Yep, all good. What other way? I'm not going that way. I'm going that way. I can see something. Not literally blind. God. Right then, let's see how we go. Oh God, you left it in the biggest gear. Thanks, mate. 4811 or whatever I've got. So rim width changes the shape of the tyre. Why does that matter? Well, so a tyre on a narrower rim will bulge out more, so it'll take on more of the shape of a balloon. This has its upsides because it can be more comfortable to ride, and that's because the tyre will compress more for a given pressure. Now, I checked this actually with the boffins at Pirelli Tyres, and they said that yes, this is absolutely the case with tyre dynamics, to the extent in fact that they feel like on a really wide rim with a narrow road tyre, it's actually detrimental to rider comfort and also vibration absorption because the tyre sidewall is too straight. Now that, though, is a topic for another video, because right here, right now, talking about gravel tyres, that's not a problem, because the relative rim width to tyre width ratio means that you will always get some kind of overhang on your gravel tyre, and therefore comfort is not a problem. What might be a problem is at the other end of the spectrum, and that is something called tyre squirm. Now this is where the overhang of the tyre is more significant, and so that if you're running lower pressures for comfort, you might find that the tyre itself can begin to collapse in certain situations, like perhaps when you're cornering hard, or when you're getting out of the saddle and putting down the power and the bike feels squirmy, basically. To combat that, what you need is for the sides of the tyre to offer more support. There's a couple of different ways of doing this. You could build that support into the tyre itself by making the carcass of it stiffer. Now, this is something that mountain bikers do a lot of because tyres are far wider than their rims, much more so than gravel tyres. But this is detrimental, I think, to rider feel. The tyre's not as supple, it's stiffer, doesn't roll as quickly, it doesn't feel as fast either. The other way of doing it is, you guessed it, making your rim slightly wider. That, therefore, will straighten the sides of the tyre, giving it more support. Can you feel it, though?
Oh, he's going for the drop-offs again.
Are there any downsides to running wider rims? Potentially there's a couple. So you can't fit narrow road tyres on wide rims. So the narrowest you can fit on this wheel, which is a 25mm wide internally, remember, is 28mm. If your rim is hookless, which these are not, then it's even wider. 29mm is now the narrowest you can safely fit. You also might find that wider rims can be a little bit heavier. So certainly the reason why aluminium rims tend to be narrower is for that exact reason. When they're wider, they have more material, so more mass. Weirdly, that doesn't seem to be the case with carbon wheels. So these ones are just 1,450 grams for the pair, despite being 25 millimeters wide internally. So 200 grams lighter than these ones. Then the last thing that I think a lot of people worry about is that if you buy wide rims, your old tyres then won't fit in your bike anymore because the tyre width suddenly increases. But no, as we've already seen, even though there's nearly a 4 millimeter increase in rim width, the tyre width has only increased by about 1.2 millimeters. It's different on the road, to be fair, where a 4 mil difference in rim width will yield a much more significant 2 or 3 millimeters in tyre width. Is there anything else to mention? Well, yes there is, and I'm glad you asked. I found a really interesting study on bicyclerolling-resistance.com, where there are many interesting studies, but this one was looking at the effect of rim width on rolling resistance. Now, given how much the rim width changes the shape of the tyre and the tyre dynamics, does it influence it? Yes it does, by a tiny amount. So over their tests, where they looked at 3 different rim widths and various different tyre pressures, they found that on average, a 4 mil increase in rim width yields a 0.3 watt reduction in rolling resistance. To be fair though, the lower the pressure you run, the greater the difference there was. So at my gravel pressures, which are about 30 psi, I would be saving a far more significant 0.5 watts per wheel. Which, you know, on this bike with these wheels in, is 1 watt faster technically than with the aluminium wheels in. Now, not many of you will be getting excited about that necessarily, but a watt is a watt. So there you go, interesting to note. What I'm thinking is I might do another run, but are you able to just let a bit of pressure out the front tyre? Just like a psst, psst. Bit more?
Didn't my sound.
Maybe one more. There you go, perfect, thanks mate. If I had to guess, and I do, because that's the whole point, I'd say that these are the carbon ones. Yeah! The bike's perhaps not quite as comfortable over like just straightforward bumpy fire road. Like not by much, and when I dropped the pressure that second time, like it kind of evened out, so running lower pressures gave a similar feel, but it just felt like there was a lot more control through the single track basically on those corners. Like it's wet as today, so you can't rail them too hard because it's so slippery. The bike just felt more responsive, like you could go faster around the corners. So yeah, you can feel the difference. Brilliant, not time wasted.
But wait, there's more! Yes, I thought you'd want to know that having checked my Strava after my ride, I discovered that I was actually 7 seconds faster through the single track on the wider rims. That's over 6%. And bear in mind that speed wasn't my goal in this test, but it's interesting at least to know that there was a measurable difference between the rims, and it was perhaps even more significant than it felt. Admittedly, it is deeply unscientific, but still, like I said, I thought you'd want to know.
So what is the conclusion then after all of this? Well, rim width is not super duper important, okay? Like it is not like getting the right saddle height or having the right gear ratios or choosing the right tyre width, but it does make a difference. So if you are in the market for new wheels, then it's definitely something you should look at. And again, from talking to our mates at Pirelli, they said from their perspective as a tyre manufacturer, 25 mil is probably the optimal rim width for a 40 to 45 mil gravel tyre. So whilst you can run a wider tyre on a narrow rim with absolutely no problem at all, and again, there are some benefits like with comfort, when you run a wider tyre on a wider rim, you can drop the pressure a little bit to get that comfort, but then you also get the added benefit of that increased control. Now, not every gravel rider is necessarily going to notice that or need that, but it's good to have it, I think. Basically, is my conclusion after all of that. Huge thanks to Shimano for the loan of their wheels. Thanks to Alex Payton for the loan of his gravel bike. I might give it a little rinse before I give it back to him. Give this video a big thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. I'm going to go get dry and warm.